He could be anyone. That was the whole miracle of him. You pulled one mask off, slid another one on, and the man in your hands became a completely different hero, a different voice, a different power, a different world to save. No other toy on Earth did that. No other toy trusted you enough to let you decide every single afternoon who the hero was going to be today. And if you were one of the boys who held him, you already know that the choosing was the best part. Before we dive in, hit subscribe and drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. You saw him first in the pages of a catalog, and you have never forgotten that moment. It was fall, probably November, and the Sears Christmas wish book had arrived like a holy text, thick and glossy and full of everything a boy could want. You turned the pages slowly, deliberately, the way you would handle something precious, and then you stopped. There he was, standing in his blue and black uniform, surrounded by the faces of heroes you already loved. Superman, Batman, Captain America, the Phantom, the Lone Ranger. The words underneath told you something impossible. One figure, all of them. You could dress him as any hero you wanted, snap on the mask, and he became that person. Your heart made its decision before your brain caught up. You circled the picture. You circled it again, harder, in case anyone might miss it. You dropped hints at dinner. You mentioned it before bed. You lay awake calculating the days until Christmas and wondering whether this was the year the world would finally make sense. And then it was Christmas morning, and the box was in your hands, and it was heavier than you expected. You tore the wrapping off, and there he was behind the cellophane, muscular, articulated, staring back at you with that strange, serious face like he already knew how important this was going to be. You lifted him out. You felt the weight of him, denser and more detailed than the other figures on your shelf. His joints stiff and new, his blue uniform crisp. The lightning sword, the ray gun, the belt, everything molded with a care that told you someone somewhere had taken this seriously. You held him up to the light and turned him slowly, studying every angle, and the rest of Christmas morning dissolved around you. There was only you and him and the question that would power every afternoon for the next 2 years. Who is he going to be today? Not every father understood. Some dads looked at the box and saw a doll, and the word landed like a verdict. You watched your old man's face tighten, heard the edge in his voice, "No son of mine," and felt the strange shame of wanting something that the adult world had decided was wrong for a boy to want. Some boys never got one because of that. Some boys got one and heard about it for years, the older brother's smirk, the dad's jokes about playing with dollies, but you knew what they didn't. You knew that the moment you snapped a mask onto that face and buckled a cape around those shoulders, he stopped being a doll and became something no word in the English language had been invented for yet. The people who made him had to coin a brand new term just to give fathers permission to buy one. They called it an action figure, and that phrase exists today because of the war between a boy's longing and a father's pride. The costumes came in separate boxes, and collecting them was its own kind of fever. Each one was a cloth outfit with a vinyl mask and a set of accessories so specific they made the transformation feel real. The Superman set had a cape, arm shackles, a block of kryptonite, and a tiny Crypto, the Superdog, with his own little cape. The Batman had a batarang and a utility belt. The Aquaman came with a trident and flippers and a conch horn you could actually press to his mouth. You didn't just dress him, you equipped him, piece by tiny piece, the way a soldier gears up for a mission. And when the last boot was on and the mask was in place, you looked down at your hands, and the man who had been nobody a minute ago was now the most powerful being on the planet, because you had made him so. Your friends had different costumes than you did, and that turned every play date into a summit. Jimmy had Captain America and the weapons arsenal. Scotty had Aquaman and the survival kit. You had Superman and the Lone Ranger. Nobody had them all. The sets were too expensive for any one family to buy every single one, so you pooled your heroes, traded masks across the living room floor, and built a team that no single boy could have assembled alone. That was the secret engine of it. The thing the toy maker probably never planned. He made you need each other. The figure was designed for one boy's hands, but the game only reached its full size when the whole neighborhood showed up with their boxes. There was a villain, too, and he was unlike anything you had ever seen in a toy store. A blue-skinned alien with an exposed brain and a face that looked like a nightmare someone had sculpted on purpose. His name was Dr. Evil, and he came with a lab coat, a hypnotic eye, a thought scanner, and a set of disguises that let him pass as human, which somehow made him creepier. He was the reason your hero needed to exist. Without him, the costumes were just dress-up. With him, every afternoon had stakes, a plot, a battle worth winning. You set him up across the room and sent your hero charging toward him, and for a few minutes the carpet was a battlefield and the couch was a fortress, and you were the author of a story no one had ever told before. He had a sidekick, and that mattered more than it sounds like it should. A smaller figure called Action Boy, who came with his own costumes, Robin, Superboy, and Aqualad, and his own pet, a sleek Black Panther. If you had a little brother, Action Boy was his. If you were the little brother, Action Boy was yours, and having your own figure in the same world as the big one made you part of the story instead of just a spectator. The two of them rode together in a vehicle called the Silver Streak, an amphibious car with rockets that actually fired, and the pair of them, hero and sidekick, big brother and little brother, saved the world on a daily basis from the blue alien in the lab coat. Those were the terms of the afternoon, and they were magnificent. He could fly. Not in the way your imagination usually had to supply. This time, for once, a toy could actually do it. He came with a 4-foot parachute, real nylon, and if you threw him high enough off the porch or out a second-story window, he floated down slowly, twisting in the air, cape and chute billowing behind him like something out of the comic books come to life. You did it over and over, running downstairs and back up, launching him into the sky and watching him drift, and each time he landed on the grass, you picked him up and ran again. It was the closest thing to a real superpower a toy had ever given you. Not a printed promise on the box, but an actual visible, heart-stopping flight. And the day the parachute tangled in a tree branch and you had to beg your father to climb up and free him might be one of the funniest stories you've never told anyone. The man who dreamed him up had already changed the toy world once and nobody knew it. Years earlier, he had walked into a meeting with a prototype of an articulated soldier and sold the idea for $100,000. That soldier became the most famous action figure ever made, a figure you almost certainly already owned. But this man wasn't finished. He took the same concept to a different company and proposed something bolder. Not a soldier who could wear different uniforms, but a hero who could become different heroes entirely. The company said yes. They changed the name from the original pitch, Captain Magic, to something sharper, and put him on shelves in the same year that a certain television show turned every boy in America into a superhero fanatic. The timing was perfect. The idea was perfect. The man who invented the soldier had just invented his own competition, and for a blazing moment, it looked like the competition might win. He arrived at exactly the right time, and that's part of why he burned so bright. The year he appeared, a masked man in a cape was exploding across television screens twice a week, and suddenly every boy wanted to be a hero, not just watch one. And here was a toy that let you do exactly that. Not pretend, but transform. Mask on, cape tied, boots buckled, standing in your bedroom as the most powerful version of yourself you could imagine. He wasn't just riding the wave, he was the wave. The physical object that turned a television fantasy into something you could hold and control and take to bed with you. No screen required, no weekly schedule. He was there whenever you needed him, which was always. The moment of transformation was the thing you lived for, and you performed it with a ritual's care. You peeled off the old costume slowly, folded it the way the box showed you, set the mask aside, then you opened the new box and laid out the pieces, the suit, the boots, the accessories, the mask with its painted eyes staring up from the carpet. You dressed him piece by piece, adjusting the collar, pressing the emblem into place, and then last of all, you slid the mask over his face and watched him become someone else entirely. It was a magic trick you performed with your own fingers, and it never got old, because each time he changed, the whole story changed with him. Yesterday's rescue became today's space mission, became tomorrow's jungle adventure, and the only constant was the boy on the floor, holding the power of transformation in his hands like a secret the rest of the world hadn't figured out yet. The company built an entire world around him and hoped it would be enough to keep him alive. There were accessory packs, survival kits, weapons arsenals, space communicators, each one designed to extend the play another hour, another afternoon, another reason to ask your parents for one more box. There was an Aurora model kit so you could build him yourself. There were flicker rings that shifted between his face and the heroes he could become. There was even a comic book, 5 issues drawn by some of the best artists in the business, giving him a real name and a backstory involving ancient coins and the powers of the gods. Everything a boy could want was built around this one figure, layer by layer, piece by piece, as if the people who made him understood that the toy itself was only the seed and the world around it was the garden. But the garden didn't last. The heroes on television cooled off. The costumes cost more to license than the company could sustain. Parents who had lined up to buy superhero toys began to pull back, and the shelves started filling with the next thing. After 2.5 years, not even 3 full Christmases, the company quietly stopped making him. No announcement, no farewell. One season he was in the catalog, bright and promising on the glossy page, and the next season the page was someone else's. The boy who had circled his picture so hard the ink bled through didn't notice at first, because by then the costumes were scattered in a box and the masks were losing their shape and the afternoons were getting shorter in the way that afternoons do when you're growing up without meaning to. What made him different from every other figure that came and went is that he was the first to let you hold a superhero in your hands. Before him, the heroes you loved existed only on screens, in comic panels, in your imagination. He was the bridge between the story and the boy, the physical proof that you could be Superman, that you could be Batman, that the costume didn't just belong to someone on television, but to you on your bedroom floor, in your own 2 hands. Every superhero figure that came after him, every single one, for decades, walked through a door he opened. The toys your son played with, the figures your grandson collects today, they all trace back to a moment in 1966 when one man had the idea that a boy deserved to hold his hero, and a company had the courage to make it real. Most of you lost him in the ordinary way, not dramatically, not in a single moment, but gradually, the way childhood itself slips away. A boot went missing in the couch. A mask got chewed by the dog. The costumes ended up in a shoebox. Then the shoebox ended up in a closet. Then the closet got cleaned out by a mother who saw old plastic where you saw an entire universe. Some of you came home from summer camp to find the box gone, sold at a yard sale for $0.25, and the anger you felt that day is still warm enough to touch. You never got to say goodbye to him. Nobody asked. Nobody thought a grown boy still needed a toy he had outgrown. And they were wrong, because you had not outgrown him at all. You had just gotten too tall to kneel on the carpet without feeling like you had to explain yourself. The costume that took you 5 careful minutes to put on at age 8 took your mother 5 careless seconds to drop into a garbage bag at age 13, and she never knew she was throwing away a superpower. If you were lucky enough to have him, you are part of a small and shrinking circle. He was only here for 2.5 years, and the boys who dressed him and posed him and fought his battles are men now. Most of them in their 60s and 70s, carrying a memory that grows more precious as the circle gets smaller. Some of them still have a figure tucked away somewhere, a stiff little man in a faded blue suit with no mask and no sword, missing his boots, missing his cape, missing everything except the feeling he still carries. Others lost him decades ago and would pay almost anything to hold one again, just to feel that weight settle into their palm and remember the morning they opened the box and the whole world was theirs to save. So if you were one of those boys, if you circled his picture in the wish book until the page tore, if you argued with your father about whether he was a toy or a doll, if you swapped masks with the kid across the street and built a team no toy maker ever imagined, then you already know that this was never really about an action figure at all. It was about the power to choose. It was about a boy standing in his room with a mask in each hand, deciding who to be today and knowing that no matter which one he picked, he was going to save the world before dinner. That power is gone now. The company that made him is gone. The catalog page is gone. The masks are gone. But the boy who had it, the boy who believed in it, he is still in there somewhere, waiting for one more afternoon, one more costume, one more chance to choose. Which hero did you turn him into first, and do you still remember why you chose that one?